This video is going to be on a few different things, of course, in regards to prominently the focal idea of antinatalism, alongside even touching with Efilism, going into ideas like moral nihilism, nihilism in general. And I always try to intertwine veganism. I'm not a vegan myself, but there's just a lot of similar ethical sense between that and antinatalism. Shout out to A Drop of Melancholy. He wanted me to go over a bit of my understanding behind the concept around Efilism and how it's pretty in tangent with antinatalism. I just don't see the point of arguing against it in its ethical context. But yeah, I recently had a bit of a chat with somebody, I guess you can say, in the community. He's an antinatalist himself. His channel, I'll leave a reference in the description on his person. He doesn't necessarily align his antinatalist views that he holds for his own personal life towards life in general and just for any person in particular. It just happened to be that within the context of his own existence, the concept of antinatalism made the most sense to him, and all is well with that. He has videos going over his thoughts on not obviously the entire community, but a selected community within antinatalism. And I guess people kind of like the amendums in the world that look to argue that there is some objective morality, that there is some objective truth, undeniable truth when it comes to this existence. I had a bit of a talk with him, going over our thoughts surrounding a lot of things, but that was a key feature point in our conversation. Again, kind of that objective morality idea, objective truth dilemma. And we both were pretty much on the same basis. There's really, in a sense, no objective truth in terms of morality. When it comes to morality, ethics, this is within the confines of human subjectivity. So to say that is objective, obviously it comes with a certain technicality where you have to preference and say, okay, of course, we're not speaking about objectivism in the sense of some cosmic universal principle. Clearly not that. A lot of times I feel like human language, there's just a lot of misunderstanding or miscommunication within words and phrases that we use. A lot of times we have to really try to understand what people are looking to intend to say and go off of that basis and not just what we would like to hear about what we would think they're saying. So when it comes to people like Amendum and how they would like to spout that there's some objective morality, clearly Amendum, I mean, people like him, they're smart to some extent, right? Clearly they're not talking about some universal cosmic principle of some objective morality. Again, these are concepts by humans. So if we're, making some statement like objective, it's within human subjectivity, not some whatever principle more than that. So a lot of times it's just projection that I see with people that have any type of issue with antinatalists. Everyone's coming from good intent. Projection isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we use a word like projection when somebody has a particular perception on somebody that is clearly not within their actual domain. So clarification would be needed. People can use terms like objective morality. That's fine. You just need to have certain clarifications with that. I mean, people have these new terms all the time. People can say, if you read a book or anything, people create new words or terms all the time. So again, it's just the intention, understanding really, again, what people are meaning to say behind what they're saying. So if you do know that, then it kind of mitigates any misunderstanding or miscommunication that you could have. I just don't think people are that stupid. It's just really trying to mean hear what they really mean to say. But yeah, when it comes to these, sayings, with moral nihilism, it's just, again, pinpointing how all these ideas are within human subjectivity. So because of that, it's just inherent with whatever we're saying, that because we don't really control, this universe, nothing necessarily actually matters. Nothing necessarily is bad or good. I don't know, when it comes to a theory like nihilism, moral nihilism, I just see it that it's kind of missing the point of the matter within the actual conversation. It's not really actually making a point. These points are pretty redundant in my eyes. I think anyone understands to a sense how these things don't actually really matter. Nothing necessarily is bad or good. This world, this reality is an illusion. Nothing is actually quote unquote real. But again, I just feel like it's kind of unnecessary of a point to be given in this type of conversation. It's kind of similar to how when I was talking to On His Person, we made a point of how a lot of times when it comes to anything really, that there's no actual form of altruism, that when it comes to anything that you're looking to do for someone else, you're still looking to do it within your own self, that you're looking to do that initially for your own, even psychological well-being. Initially, you have to want to do something for someone else. So in that sense, there isn't any altruistic effort, truthfully, in a certain sense. But obviously, I mean, that isn't like, the end all be all. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's clearly levels. I always say, people can look to say that, antinatalism is a form of self-rationalization. Kind of like with altruism, you're self-rationalizing why you're looking to help somebody. But it's always still a better self-rationalization to mitigate or prevent harm, let alone aid somebody from being alleviated out of a harm state, than self-rationalizing, imposing, and inflicting harm to somebody that's, in the context of antinatalism, never asking to be within a harm state to begin with. So again, it's just a lot of times we just need to clarify what we're saying here. Kind of how I said initially. I hope if it was conveyed in the beginning of the video. I just don't really see the point of arguing against antinatalists, whatever intention, whatever things that we do within that sense and the community. I understand people are kind of lame and we do a lot of dumb shit, but within this context of the ethics behind such a philosophy, clearly people are coming with goodwill, good intentions. So when I see people when they are of contention against it, I don't see the point. I really don't. It's simple. It is simple. You're just calling something for what it is. Procreation, similar like veganism. When it comes to carnism, eating meat, you don't say that eating meat is moral. This is a biological impulse. We were driven to eat meat. That's a evolutionary instinct that we developed, right? So why would we say procreation is moral or ethical? No, these are biological impulses. So if we're now creating these terms of morality on top of our biology, it becomes redundant. Why are we? No, it's just biology at that point. Why are we trying to make it more than what it is? It's not a virtue. It's not a form. It can be, you can argue it's morality, but again, it's very flawed. That's why I think there's a form of separation between morality and ethics. I just see ethics more as a community-wide approach. It's just more so aligning yourself towards certain axiological truths that we kind of universally hold as inherent principles for human subjectivity, sentient subjectivity. And someone's morality doesn't necessarily have to encompass that clearly. So I just don't see the point of trying to argue that, again, DNA propagating someone's lineage is moral. That never took morality. It just is. It's just nature. Nature isn't moral. Nature isn't ethical. So it just doesn't make sense, which is why, again, I always try to exemplify veganism, because within that type of discourse, you don't see people arguing that it's moral to eat meat because of the harm it clearly condones. And obviously, when it comes to procreation, it clearly condones harm too. Let alone, people, we have to be real. We have mouths currently in existence that are looking to be filled, that no one gives a fuck about. We want to create our own existence for our own direct families, while there are people right now requesting aid. And we're not giving a fuck about that, and we're doing something else on our own. So to then say that you're building up whatever type of robust moral code, it's just silly. It's just silly. It's not that. And that's okay. You don't owe anybody anything. Kind of in tangent a bit with the moral nihilism point of view. Nothing necessarily is good or bad per se. And the whole point is we're not forcing anyone to do anything, right? In theory, it's really them that's forcing us to be here and have to go through this process of birth and death. So again, we're not forcing anybody to do anything. So when it comes to theories like this, I just don't see the point of arguing against it. I feel like a lot of times people want to make people be shitty. When it comes to things like veganism, again, I'm not a vegan. I just like to exemplify that type of philosophy because, again, there's not really much you can say about it. It's just showing a very disgusting cloak that's on humanity and just sentience and the carnal issue that comes with this thing. You're just doing grotesque acts upon each other, and again, it never took a justification. It never took any set of morality. It was within our nature will of doing, and that's that. There's no higher virtue. So I don't understand why people are arguing when people look to address how it's. And again, it's just wrong. It's just when you look at the actual harm it inflicts, it's just wrong. There's no debate to be had about that. But again, another concept with how people can say that existence is negative. Again, you have to understand what people mean behind a statement like that. If someone says life is inherently suffering, existence is inherently negative. Again, understand what people mean behind that, right? When we say things like we're founded upon a deficient state, these are facts, okay? So when we say that life is inherently suffering or existence is inherently negative, that doesn't mean that someone can't have a good life. That's a qualitative aspect on top of the basis of life being suffering. So again, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We can still realize that people can enjoy themselves here. But when you look at the actual objective reality of what they're doing, they're, again, alleviating a harm. One of my other videos, I stated, again, we're fixing problems. So again, that initial state is a negative state. It's just, again, I feel like with how I said in my other video, antinatalism and suffering, people don't like certain words. I don't know, but that's just the facts. You are looking to get out of a state. If you're looking to get out of a state, then you're within initially a negative state. It's very simple. So clearly, when it comes to concepts like antinatalism and Efilism, you're just trying to pinpoint how it's not right to create an unnecessary need. And when it comes to other people that don't like to align themselves with that philosophy, then that's on them. If they want to create an unnecessary need, no one's forcing them not to do that per se. But to them, to come out of the woodworks and say that they're doing something of a moral virtue, that's where I would have to come in and say, no, it's really not that in the sense that I'm looking to exemplify. It's not that. You're doing that because you're looking to just do it because you can. It never took any morality. It just is because that's within your DNA. That's within your will. That's an impulse. Again, it's biology. Biology is not necessarily moral. Moral is something that we created out of our DNA and being evolved to the current state that we're at. But to say that, this is actually of, any, no, it's not. It's nothing more than what it is. And antinatalism is just really just pinpointing that. And again, it goes in tangent with Efilism. People can say, oh, we don't need to actually do anything to other sentients here. I mean, whatever, but it's the same concept. Other sentients are creating other sentients to come here to have to alleviate certain unnecessary needs. And again, there's no need of creating unnecessary needs. That's just a fact. And so whatever feelings you have on top of that, fine. But clearly, it doesn't make sense within the ethics of the matter to do that because clearly, as we should all know, not all needs are met. And again, clearly, other people's needs and desires come at the detriment and infliction of harm to others. So this is not a good process that's going on. Clearly. And I think a lot of times what I wanted to tie this video into as well is that when it comes to theories like nihilism, moral nihilism, it makes people apathetic. Like I told him on his person, a lot of times with these type of theories, essentially you're just telling people not to give a fuck about anything and just let people do as they please. And that's fine. That's all we're really doing at the end of the day. We're not forcing anyone to do anything. But it gets people to become docile and apathetic to certain things. So you talk about things like the political system. No one's a dumbass. I feel like it's a general consensus that people know that we're getting fucked over for the general majority of humans just, here on earth, whatever political system that you're in, for the common man, we are not in the best position currently. There are people that are in representative bodies that don't give a fuck about us. So again, these are general known truths, but we're really not doing anything about it. We like to complain about it, but what are we actually doing? Not much. So it's like, if we know all this, then why are we putting people in these states and then acting like we're doing something that is quote unquote good? No, it doesn't really make sense. And again, when people say things like they enjoy their life or, their life is good, when they look at the back of it all at the end of the day, again, I always say that's a great thing to say, but that's a blanket statement. It's kind of like when we say things like, how are you doing to each other? How have you been? How are you? It kind of puts us in a certain corner where we can't really say much. And it kind of defaults us to a certain limitation of a response to say, oh, we're fine, or, we're doing good. But it's not the whole story. And what I look to do within the context of antinatalism is to pinpoint the whole story. So when someone does say, okay, yeah, my life is great or whatever, I can ask them simple questions, right? Is it then immoral for them to have been imposed birth and death? Is it okay for people to enjoy being in a state of decay, decline, and degeneration? Do people really enjoy being in a state that's really not free will? Do people really enjoy being in this mode of survival? Just basic ask questions. Is this encompassing of a good life to you? It doesn't to me. It does not make sense for that to be a good life for me. So clearly, right, it's not encompassing life within itself. When people make those statements, oh, my life is good. Even on top of that, you have, again, people in need right now. I don't care how good my life personally is per se, but if there is harm all around me and I'm not able to do anything, how does that then make my life good? My life is within the same livelihood of other people. So if that's the livelihood that I'm looking around and seeing from other people, me personally, this is what I can, but I know other people should be able to agree with what I'm saying. I can't deem my life good when that's the same shit that's going on with other people's lives within my existence. I will not deem my life necessarily as good. In an obvious sense, it's not good because there is a lot of bad going on within my life in the world that is within my life. So again, these a lot of things that we say, it just doesn't make sense. We have to clarify a lot of times what we intend behind what we say. So with internet stuff and comments and stuff, a lot of things get limited in our perception behind what people are actually within a frame of work looking to bring about, to address. And I just try to clarify things because when it comes to a concept like antinatalism, this is not hard. This should not really be anything. Kind of like veganism. You don't see people argue the ethics against veganism. That's just silly. It should be the same thing like antinatalism. When I see people look to argue against it, they don't make sense. Not to say that antinatalists are just anyone, right? We're humans. It doesn't mean that people aren't like annoying or aggravating. That's besides the point. Look at the merit behind the actual philosophy and run with that. And again, in tangent with Efilism, if you look at what it is, it's just not really wanting to impose an unnecessary need. If whatever justification you look to attempt to make out of that, fine. Just know that that's not really a ethical justification. All this you can be coined as a self-rationalization, but like I said, it's better to have a self-rationalization that prevents imposing harm and the infliction of unnecessary harm over a self-rationalization that looks to impose such a thing and inflict harm. Clearly, one is more ethical than the other. So there really isn't much to be said. And a bit over how, the context to the current timeline we see ourselves in, with the theory of Efilism, people always get they think like people are going to slaughter each other and stuff. I don't know. It's just they get so scared. I don't know. But again, just look at the political context of where we find ourselves in. I mean, people are threatening nuclear war. What are we doing here? What are we really doing here? Where that's a thing that's currently going on. So it just doesn't make sense. And again, political, you always have to talk to some sense the political realm, because that constitutes a very large portion of what sentience is doing here. And again, in just that realm, no one gives a fuck about us. A lot of times when it comes to health aspects, a lot of different things, you have to unlearn a lot of things. You have to unlearn a lot of conventional history and things. So why are you putting people through that pain and burden of having to go through all those hoops? It just doesn't make sense. A lot of times people have to look to make their own food, make their own little remedies for their health. They're looking to abstain from the system. They're looking to, whether they want to go off the grid. So it's just backwards of putting somebody in that problem, and then they're looking to, just the people that look to actually help them within their problems are not really helping them. They're fucking them over. So it's just a problem within a problem, and then people want to act like that's a moral act to put somebody in that mode in the beginning. To begin with, it's not. It's fucked up. So when you say these words, ethics, unethical, it's looking at something, procreation, saying it's fucked up, it's screwed up. And you can say whatever you want on top of that, but if you're not able to see the sense of what we're looking to address, I just say that's, again, very telling. Humans, again, self-rationalization, that's all we're doing. And you can say that that's, again, the same case for antinatalists, but clearly there are levels. And if you're not wanting to, pretty much concede to such levels and scales to the conversation, then the conversation is over, because that just goes back to how people are dishonest. It's really not that hard to see. Before I uploaded this video, I wanted to go over how I perceive these terms between morality and ethics. A pretty relevant term that I would say that, it's been used before from other people, is maturity. This type of conversation is for serious minds, serious thinkers. Again, it's not really hard. It doesn't really matter what you do outside of the conversation, but when you're engaging within this discourse, again, it just takes maturity. And it never really makes sense to, argue against maturity. That's just what it is. When it comes to procreation, you're dealing with people that are compulsive gamblers. That's inherent within somebody that procreates. You're a compulsive gambler. You're betting on something that's not your bet. You're running the risk on something that you're not the one having to be dealt that actual risk. These are just inherent truths within the act of what you're condoning. So to act like that's anything more than what it is, being a biological stated impulse, that's just a little silly. It's a little silly. It's very, very selfish if we're talking about traits such as, again, ethics, morality, and you're trying to defend something that is, again, selfish. It doesn't make sense to, again, come into this type of conversation if you are someone that's mature. And again, this these theories, antinatalism, Efilism, you're caring about more than just your existence. You're looking at sentient existence in and of itself. You're looking at obvious, objective realities. The function, really, it's just a function of sentience. So it doesn't really take how someone thinks about their own personal life. My life is good or that. No, it's more than that conversation. Again, maturity. It's more than your own life. You're looking at being compassionate. You can say empathy. It's just understanding what sentience has to go through in many common realities. And that's not something that you will look to address if you are somebody that condones this. So this is just a silly conversation. But it's important because not many people clearly are understanding to this type of perspective that I know many of you understand that are listening. But I just think it's important for us to convey to people that we know so that, we put them privy. So hopefully they can make a decision that's preventing of a lot of pain for other people that could have been here.